Tremaine, a law firm serving businesses and individuals from offices in Oregon, Washington, California, Idaho, Alaska, and Washington, D.C.
Good evening. I'm Robert McNeil in New York.
And I'm Jim Lara in Washington. After our summary of the news this Thursday, the Clinton economic team, who and what are they? And Iraqgate, as seen very differently by the Attorney General's special investigator and a Democratic congressman.
Part of helping the world live and communicate better is keeping it well informed. That's why funding for the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour is provided by AT&T and by PepsiCo. And by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and viewers like you.
Bill Clinton today announced his economic team, the first major appointments of his administration. He named Texas Senator Lloyd Benson as Treasury Secretary and California Representative Leon Panetta as Budget Director. Mr. Clinton spoke at a news conference in Little Rock.
These people are seasoned, skilled, incredibly able, and ready to work for the American people. I'm going to work my heart out with these people, construct a strong long-term plan for economic growth, for jobs, for incomes, and to reduce our national debt.
Senator Benson and Congressman Panetta then spoke about their objectives for the next 4 years.
I'll miss my colleagues in the Congress, but I'm comforted by the fact that I'll be representing the President and working for an economic policy to create jobs in this country, to have a more competitive economy, and better able to create opportunity in our country.
There remain some very deep and fundamental problems in our economy. A budget deficit that drains our private and public resources, inadequate growth, jobs, investment, productivity, competitiveness. Our ability to meet this challenge will be the real test of this new president, a new Congress, of every American, and indeed of the nation itself.
We'll have more on this story just after the news summary. In economic news, wholesale prices fell 0.2% in November, the first dip in 10 months. Lower food and fuel prices led the way. In a separate report, the Labor Department said first-time unemployment claims dropped to their lowest level in 3 years during the last week in November. And the government reported the nation's commercial banks earned a record $8.5 billion in the third quarter. Low interest rates paid to depositors was cited as a major reason. Jim?
French troops in Mogadishu shot and killed 2 Somalis today. It was the first bloodshed of Operation Restore Hope. Pentagon officials said it happened when a truck carrying the Somalis crashed through a French Foreign Legion barricade. 7 other Somalis were injured. The truck was one of the so-called technicals that carry a mounted weapon. More relief flights arrived in the Somali capital, but heavy rains prevented the distribution of food to the hungry. More U.S. forces also arrived to expand their control of the capital before moving inland. Jeremy Thompson of Independent Television News reports from Mogadishu.
As the big crackdown continued, nobody was exempt. Today, the U.S. Marines raided the stronghold of one of Mogadishu's warlords, General Mohammed Aidid, after reports that an American helicopter had been fired upon. Inside, one of his main arms dumps, complete with homemade armored cars, truckloads of ammunition being loaded for retreat, and barrels of fuel. Evidence that Somalia's leaders are not yet entirely ready for peace. But as the U.S. Marines commander swept into town with his bodyguard, he said his men were ready for anything.
We have a long way to go to establish the kind of security that we think we need to facilitate the execution of this humanitarian mission. In the days ahead, you're going to see a lot of logistics, a lot of troops flowing in here, and as quickly as we can, we're going to get out to make sure that the NGOs and the relief efforts is made easier.
A new order has been imposed on Mogadishu as the troops attempt to end the anarchy. But it's not without some drama. This woman knocked down by a runaway car trying to evade the French Foreign Legion. The Legionnaires putting up with no nonsense as they weeded out the city's weapons. But the troops may face a tougher task when they take food to the inland city of Baidoa this weekend. Hundreds of gunmen who fled from Mogadishu are now terrorizing the people and the aid workers.
We expect tonight attacks on most of the care compounds, although that's the threat that we've been given.
While most relief workers have already been evacuated from Baidoa, those left are barricading themselves in.
Care officials have requested protection from the Pentagon for their workers in Baidoa. U.S. Marines are not expected there until the weekend at the earliest. Baidoa is also the destination for the 1st Army infantrymen headed for Somalia. A company of about 120 soldiers from the 10th Mountain Division at Fort Drum, New York, received their deployment orders today. They will establish security zones at 3 other sites besides Baidoa.
Defense Secretary Dick Cheney today said U.S. allies agree that the peacekeeping effort in Bosnia is not working, but he said there's no agreement on what to do about it. Cheney made the comments before a meeting of NATO defense ministers in Brussels. He said that he does not want any U.S. ground forces deployed in Bosnia to stop the fighting there. Russian President Boris Yeltsin struck back at hardliners today, saying they were staging a creeping coup. Yesterday, the Russian Congress refused to confirm his candidate for prime minister. In a speech to the Congress, Yeltsin called for a nationwide referendum to let the Russian people decide whether he or the Congress should run the country.
Senator Bob Packwood said today he would not resign under any circumstances, but the Oregon Republican conceded his actions involving women had been just plain wrong. Some 15 women employees and lobbyists have come forward in newspaper and other complaints to allege Packwood made unwanted sexual advances toward them. Today, Packwood would not discuss specific allegations. He spoke at a Washington news conference.
In light of my commitment to women's issues and my deep belief that the workplace must be gender neutral, the current charges about my behavior trouble me in a profound way. I recognize now that my personal conduct has been at variance with these beliefs, not because my convictions are not genuine, but because my conduct was not faithful to those convictions. Although most of these incidents are a decade or 2 decades old, and no one's job or pay or status in the office was threatened, my conduct was still wrong. I just didn't get it. I do now.
Some Packwood opponents in Oregon said the senator's statement was not enough. Democratic leader Betty Roberts, who is leading a recall drive, said Packwood still, quote, doesn't get it.
Former President Jimmy Carter today delivered his annual assessment of human rights around the world. He used the opportunity to call for military intervention in Haiti. He said the U.S. and the Organization of American States should send troops to secure the country for free elections to be held. Haiti's military overthrew the democratically elected government last year. President Carter spoke on Capitol Hill.
The key to the Haitian refugee question is not just to open our doors, but to have our own powerful country use the same kind of influence that we used in starting the Persian Gulf War to liberate Kuwait, and is now exhibiting in Somalia to bring some restoration of constitutional authority and democracy and freedom and human rights to Haiti.
Guatemalan Indian rights activist Rigoberta Menchú accepted the Nobel Peace Prize today in Oslo, Norway. She called it a tribute to exploited people in her country and around the world. The award is accompanied by nearly $1 million in cash, which Menchú said she will use to set up a foundation for human rights monitoring.
And that's it for the news summary tonight. Now it's on to the Clinton economic lineup and a pro and a con about Iraqgate. President-elect Clinton's starting lineup against the economy is our lead story tonight. It is headed by Senator Lloyd Bentsen as Secretary of the Treasury, with investment banker Roger Altman as Deputy Secretary, Congressman Leon Panetta, Director of the Office of Management and Budget, and his deputy, economist Alice Rivlin, plus investment banker Robert Rubin, to take the new job of Economic Security Advisor. Mr. Clinton spoke to reporters in Little Rock.
During the last presidential debate, I tried to make it clear in response to a question that I would be the chief economic advisor in my administration, and that I would take responsibility for addressing both the short and long-term economic challenges facing us. But no president can bring about economic revitalization alone. That requires the talents, the energies, the entrepreneurial spirit of all the American people, and the very special assistance of a talented few. Today, I have asked you here to announce the first members of our economic team. These people are seasoned, skilled, incredibly able, and ready to work for the American people. They are deeply aware that we must not be the first generation of Americans to leave a worse economy to our children. And as I've said repeatedly, our nation faces two deficits, a budget deficit and an investment deficit.
This is a team. During the campaign, Chairman Panetta criticized your economic plan, saying that it didn't add up. He said at one point that Clinton doesn't frankly confront the issue of how we reduce the budget deficit. How do you plan to work together and reconcile those differences on your plan and how it would reduce the budget deficit?
Well, I'm going to give him a chance to teach me some math. I gave him the best arithmetic teaching job in America, you see. No, let me give you a serious answer to that. That is a serious answer, by the way, the answer I gave you. But I have never expected people whom I select for important positions, and the same is true of my cabinet here in Arkansas, to agree with me on every issue. Alice Rivlin also didn't agree with me on every issue on the deficit, nor do I agree with either her or Leon on every specific they have recommended in the past to cure it. It is clear to me, well, let me answer the question in the other way. The reason I selected them was in spite of the fact that they have at times disagreed with me, I want people who the Congress will believe are giving them good, honest numbers, are committed to long-term deficit reduction. The only difference I ever had with anybody in my own party whom I thought was committed also to an investment strategy for America was what we should do in what order and how much we could do right now. All that is going to have to be resolved as we present a plan to the Congress based on the best information we have. But I think our long-term objectives for dealing with the long-term problems of the country are fully consistent one with the other.
Now, an analytical run-through the 5 appointees, as seen by Alan Murray, Deputy Chief of the Wall Street Journal's Washington Bureau, Jeff Foe, President of the Economic Policy Institute in Washington, and Jim Miller, who was Director of the Office of Management and Budget during the second term of the Reagan administration. And let's begin with Senator Benson. Alan, what are his likely strengths that he brings to this job?
Well, he looks like a Treasury Secretary, first of all. He's tall, gray hair, and he knows Congress and is respected in Congress, and I think that's the main reason he was picked for the job. He's someone who was appointed to get the program through.
Who are the most likely to not like this appointment?
Well, I think there are some people who feel that in his career, Senator Benson has been too friendly with business interests, has pushed too hard for special tax breaks for the oil and gas industry, for the real estate industry, and are going to be disturbed by that.
Who are going to like him the most?
Who's going to like him the most? Moderate Democrats like himself, people who are looking for somebody to come from the middle to conservative wing of the party rather than the liberal wing of the party.
Jim Miller, how would you assess Senator Benson and the job that he has to do?
Well, Senator Benson is one of the class acts of Congress. He has been a droid at pulling together diverse interests in order to enact tax legislation. He has shown some concern over investment and savings in the country. You know, he sponsored the enhanced IRAs. But on the other hand, he has prevailed over the largest tax increase that we've had in recent decades and an explosion in spending and entitlement programs. He also, together with Leon Panetta, negotiated the 1990 budget deal, which of course has been, in many people's minds, has had a very bad outcome.
Jeff Foe, how do you analyze?
I guess I have a little different view of him from Jim's. I think that Lloyd Benson clearly represents that part of the Democratic Party that sees tax cuts and tax subsidies to business as a more important element in economic growth than I think a large part of the rest of the party. Benson is clearly somebody who appeals to the conservative wing and also Wall Street, and I think that's to be expected. You know, the Secretary of the Treasury is the one that they give to Wall Street. John Kennedy appointed Douglas Dillon, who was a Republican from Wall Street. I think you could expect that from any Democratic administration.
And the reaction on Wall Street has been favorable, has it not, Alan?
It has been a favorable reaction on Wall Street and overseas.
Okay, speaking of Wall Street, Mr. Benson's deputy is Roger Altman, who comes from Wall Street. Characterize him. He is not as well known, obviously.
Not as well known, but he is better known to Mr. Clinton. His close friend from the days when they were at Georgetown University together, has been a close advisor to Governor Clinton throughout the campaign, and has tended to argue for measures that would bring down the budget deficit.
How would you characterize him, Mr. Butler?
I think that's about right. He's also someone who was an assistant secretary of the Treasury under Carter, so this is a step up as the new Democratic administration comes in. I think that, again, is an appointment that you would expect. No surprise there.
Is it important that he's a friend of Clinton's?
Oh, I think for anybody at that level in the government, it's important that you be a friend of the president. That's an extra big benefit for your career and your program.
But is that a problem for Benson, Jim Miller?
Well, I don't
have
think
the guy
so.
have his deputy have a direct tie with the president? The guy
Well, I don't think so. I think Lloyd Benson could probably stand that kind of competition. As Alan said, I think Altman does share the president's views in many things. I'm a little surprised that the president threw so much to Wall Street. I think politicians generally tend to take too seriously what Wall Street thinks of them. If the economy is going to be good in the long run, Wall Street will take care of itself. If it's going to be bad, Wall Street's going to get upset. Any event.
Doesn't matter who's got the job?
Doesn't matter who's got the job. So he's a pretty, I mean, he seems like a very competent fellow and will run, but don't overemphasize or overestimate the importance of the deputy at Treasury. The Treasury deputy, my suspicion is Mr. Altman will make the trains run on time at Treasury, and Mr. Benson will be the outside person.
Yeah. All right, Leon Panetta, Alan Murray, very familiar to anybody who's watched the NewsHour because he's been on here many, many times and is always talking about the budget and et cetera. What does he bring to Clinton's team?
Well, that's exactly what he brings. I mean, Leon Panetta is essentially a liberal congressman from the state of California, but on this issue of the budget deficit, he has an almost missionary zeal. He likes to tell the story about his father not allowing him to have any credit cards and kicking him one time when he got a gasoline credit card. This is a man who cares passionately about the budget deficit, thinks it is the most important problem.
Where does that come from?
I think it comes from this background, this sense that debt is a problem. Of course, the interesting thing is I think this puts him at odds with the president. In fact, Congressman Panetta was critical of Mr. Clinton's economic program during the campaign. He said the numbers don't add up. He said that Governor Clinton hasn't made
Andrea Mitchell of NBC News asked him about that, in fact, at the news conference. What's your read on Leon Panetta?
I think that's right, and I think there's a risk here for Bill Clinton, especially when you pair Panetta with Alice Rivlin. Both of them a very hard line on the deficit. Now, during the campaign, Clinton was articulate about the need for investment, about the need for job stimulus, and while, yes, he was for deficit reduction, these things were priorities for him. And I think what he's gambling here is that he's going to be able to spend enough time on the domestic economy so that you can get people like Panetta and Alice Rivlin, who are strong-minded and have strong opinions, that he can get them to move his agenda, their constituencies. But it's a little bit of a risk because the President of the United States has got to spend some time doing other things. And if he gets off into foreign policy for a large chunk of his time, these are the people left minding the budget store.
Jim Miller, obviously you held the same job that Leon Panetta is now going to get. Is he the right man for the job?
Well, I mean, given the alternatives, he's probably a pretty good selection for Bill Clinton. I think there are some risks in that Bill Clinton has chosen for the two top economic tier people, members of Congress, and you always wonder about the loyalty. One thing that I thought Bill Clinton would do would be bring people to Washington who were loyal to him personally and had his agenda. He's chosen for the first two appointees people from the Congress who have their own loyalties. These are entrepreneurs. When Lloyd Benson talks about having been in the gridlock, these are people who have been entrepreneuring their own things, and then they have their own agendas, and they'll try to be loyal. But
I mean, they were part of the gridlock.
They were part of the gridlock, but they also have their own agendas about how they want to do things, and swapping over and taking your cues from a new leader is not easy to do. And so I think that Leon's a very
Sure.
partisan person, too, and sometimes I wonder, and negotiating with him...
Partisan, you mean in a simple party matter?
In a party matter, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, he has illustrated that a number of times. But also in negotiating with him, I detect that some of his arguments for attacking the deficit have been more the rationale for increasing taxes, which would increase the size of the government and serve the more liberal instincts that he has. He is more liberal than I think his record indicates, precisely because of what Alan said. He's a member of the Budget Committee and has to face those budget priorities.
Now, fit Alice Rivlin into this, Alan Murray.
Well, Alice Rivlin fits very well with Leon Panetta.
Just for what Jeff Foe
For the
said.
same reason. She considers the budget deficit a big problem. She is on the record in her writings saying that she would increase taxes to deal with the budget deficit. She recently
wrote a book on
she
that.
wrote a book recently that proposed, first of all, turning over a lot of federal government responsibilities to the states, but then imposing a new value-added tax or a tax on consumption that would be shared between the states and the federal government to pay for it. Big tax increase. She also signed on recently to a report that called for a $1 a gallon increase in the gasoline tax. So again, she has some ideas that Mr. Clinton made very clear during the campaign he doesn't agree with.
Jeff Foe, I know we're all speculating here, but the word going into this was that it came down to a choice between former President-elect Clinton, a choice between Alice Rivlin and Leon Panetta. He gives the job to Panetta, but she's willing to come in as his deputy.
Yeah.
Well,
that loads up OMB with some militant deficit cutters. And again, this could be a danger for Clinton. I think, you know, if you look at this in terms of the long-run problems, and everybody's talking about the long-run issues that we have to solve, I think there's a lot of agreement. The problem is going to occur fairly shortly out into this presidency, when issues of stimulus, whether we're going to spend more, a temporary deficit in order to create jobs, come up. And the question then becomes, who's in the room with the president when those decisions are made? And he's got a couple of people here whose responses are predictable.
And is it possible, Alan Murray, that there may be a good cop, bad cop thing set in place here? So when it comes down to for Mr. Clinton to make some hard decisions, he can say, oh, well, I'd love to do that, stimulus people, but I've got Panetta and Rivlin over here saying we can't do it because of the...
Yeah, the buck stops with the president.
Well, that's right. I mean, there is that possibility. There's another possibility here, and that is that these people are essentially a veneer, an attempt to establish some respectability on what is the big flaw in his economic program. I mean, remember, these people are not being asked to draw up an economic program for the president. He has one. He ran on it. He was elected on it. He has stuck to it since the election. And the big problem with that program is that it's not very serious in attacking the deficit.
All right, now let's go to Robert Rubin, who is taking the new job, Jim Miller, economic security advisor, also from Wall Street and an investment banker. What do you think about, first of all, what do you think about the job this man has to do, and what do you think about him?
Well, people don't realize it, but presidents in the past have had organizations that bring to him economic issues. There was the Economic Policy Council, Domestic Policy Council, other organizations that have done this. This is sort of changing the procedure somewhat, and as President-elect Clinton was saying, he was not hiring more people, perhaps, with respect to, except for Rubin. I think it will be a pretty good job, and I think it's probably appropriate, since economic issues are what most people really care about these days, and I think it will be brought. He seems to be
you know him?
a fellow. I do not know him, but from what I understand about him, he's fairly non-ideological, probably will be an honest broker, and will consolidate the views of these various actors and present them to the president in a pretty honest way.
What do you know about Robert Rubin?
Well, I think that Rubin, in many ways, may be the most interesting of all these people. He's purported to be a liberal, a social liberal. He's got obviously a lot of Wall Street experience, successful man, and yet he's taking a job that is a staff job, really, at the White House.
Not a policy job.
That surprised me. You're not running anything. This is a guy from Wall Street with all that experience, and he's not Secretary of Commerce. He's a staff person in the White House, which suggests to me that he has been assured that this is going to be a big job. So the appointment of Rubin may tell us that this Economic Security Council or National Economic Council, whatever it's going to be called, is very serious, and they're going to structure that into the White House. I think that's a good thing, but I think that's the signal here.
You agree that? You hear that same signal, Alan?
I think that's right, yeah. I mean, you take a guy who's co-chairman of a big Wall Street firm, and he's worth tens of millions of dollars, and you bring him in. Clearly, he's got some clout. He's got access to the president. He has the ability to bring people together, get some decisions made. The other thing that you hear from everyone who has worked with him during the campaign is that he does serve the role of the honest broker well. He doesn't have a strong agenda of his own to push. He's willing to listen to the ideas of other people and put the thing together.
And that's crucial on a job like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what it's
now,
all about.
the one job that was not announced today was chairman of the Council of Economic Advisors. And Mr. Clinton was asked about it, and he kind of brushed it aside and said, well, that doesn't mean it. What, do you know anything? Can you add anything to that?
I don't know why it wasn't announced today, but I'm assured that he is going to appoint Laura Tyson, an economist at the University of California at Berkeley, to that job, probably announcing it tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. What do you know about? Do you know anything about her?
Yes, she is the one person that we've talked about so far who does represent the kind of ideas that Clinton ran on during the campaign.
The stimulus thing.
Well, not only the stimulus, but the ideas about longer-term restructuring of the U.S. economy, the notion that it makes a difference what the economy produces, that the United States government has an interest in whether we produce potato chips or silicon chips. That's a whole group of people, which includes Bob Reich and Ira Magaziner and Derek Shearer and some others. We haven't heard from them yet. The question is,
as a category, they're considered liberal economists.
But could I say, I think it's very important that he has made a choice with these establishmentarian types that he nominated today to go with a policy that does not reflect the extremes of his campaign. He has brought these people in as advisors, Ms. Tyson and others, but the people that will be actually doing the heavy lifting are people that are more in the middle of the road.
Well, that depends on how he structures the operation.
How would you characterize this the whole team that we know about at this point?
I think it is a very moderate team. It's clearly a big play to Congress. He rejected Paul Volcker as Treasury Secretary, partly because people in Congress argued against him. He rejected Alice Rivlin as Budget Director, partly because people in Congress argued against her. So it's a big play to Congress, and it's a play to financial markets to try and convince them that he is serious about the budget deficit.
And you were going to say it depends on how he uses them.
Well, yeah, and it also depends on what happens to the play to Main Street. There still is a big problem out there. We've got almost 10 million people out of work. Lots of businesses in trouble. That issue, the issue of how we stimulate the economy, is yet to be addressed, and we need some more people in these boxes before we know how that's going to turn out.
All right. Thank you, and we need more time, and we will get it as this story progresses. Thank you all three very much.
Thank you. Good. Still to come on the NewsHour tonight, two views of Iraqgate. But first, this is Pledge Week on PBS. We're taking a short break now so that your local public television station can ask for your support. That support helps keep programs like this on the air.
Hi, I'm Jim Leinfelder, and welcome to OPB's December membership drive. Did you know that McNeil-Lehrer was the first nightly hour-long news analysis program on American television? There's something else unique about the NewsHour. There are 58 minutes of news and analysis on the NewsHour with no commercial interruptions. However, we do break in occasionally to ask for your financial support for programs like the NewsHour. We know you depend on the in-depth coverage Robert McNeil and Jim Lehrer provide. Now we need you to show your support for the NewsHour by calling with a pledge. And with your pledge, you will also receive the Reckless Youth JFK book if it adds up to $150. This is first of what I understand will be 3 installments of this interesting look at John F. Kennedy's formative years. The numbers are simple. Remember, if you're calling from Portland, the number is 245-2345. From anywhere else in our viewing area, all of Oregon and southwestern Washington, call toll-free 1-800-245-2346. Members like you supply 49%, nearly half of the money we need at Oregon Public Broadcasting to bring programs like McNeil-Lehrer to you. But we need your call to make it happen. Tess?
Thanks, Jim. Hi, I'm Tess Vigland of OPB Radio. We have a unique premium for you when you call and pledge tonight at the $60 level. It's the 1993 Oregon Field Guide Calendar. OPB viewers submitted more than 125 photographs of their favorite scenes around the state, and you'll find 12 of these outstanding shots in the calendar. It's part of our way of saying thank you for your pledge of support. If you'd like to make programming your VCR a lot easier, we have another premium available for a pledge of $150. It's called the VCR Plus Programmer.
Some people describe using their VCR Plus this way, or this. It's as easy as others claim they can do it. Your contribution to OPB brings you this VCR Plus instant programmer. It makes using your VCR really simple.
Even I can do it.
The program codes for VCR Plus are listed each month in your Oregon Focus magazine, another great benefit of membership.
Call us with your pledge, 245-2345 or 1-800-245-2346. Talk to one of the volunteers from the International Association for Financial Planning or Team America.
During this membership drive, you have the opportunity to stretch your membership dollars.
Many Oregon and Washington companies, over 100 in all, belong to OPB's matching gift program.
And that means that whatever level you become a member, it will automatically be increased if the company you work for is on this list.
This is a great way to do your part for OPB, your employer, and your community.
So call now and find out if you work for a matching gift employer. 245-2345 or toll-free 1-800-245-2346.
When you call with your pledge, we make it easy. You can pay by check or take advantage of your credit card.
It helps us to keep costs down so more money goes right where it's needed buying programs that you want to watch.
We take them all. We take Visa, MasterCard, American Express, and the Discover card.
Unless you care about it, it's just wires in a box. That's what Edward R. Murrow said about television years ago.
That statement has special meaning for us at OPB. Without your caring and financial support, we wouldn't be here, and programs like the NewsHour wouldn't exist at all.
But at least 1 in 8 of you are members, and do put your money where your interests are, into quality programming.
We'd like to hear from more of you with your phone call. If you're calling from Portland, the number is 245-2345.
Or anywhere outside the toll-free area, it's toll-free 1-800-245-2346.
There's no question that when things get tense in the world, or get just plain interesting, many more of us turn to information sources we trust, like the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour, Northwest Week, and the other news and public affairs programs here on OPB. Hi, I'm Claudia Brown from Northwest Week. If we've earned your trust in these crazy times, we hope we've also earned your support all year long. It's the only way we can be ready when you really need us. Please make a generous pledge tonight.
If you're in the Portland area, call 245-2345. Elsewhere in Oregon and southern Washington, wherever you're watching, call toll-free 1-800-245-2346. With the holidays coming up fast, here's a great gift idea that's just a phone call away. Give a gift membership in OPB. It's just $35 for an individual membership or $45 for a family gift membership. We'll send a card acknowledging your gift, and they'll get Oregon Focus magazine every month. They'll also receive the ticket to Oregon, which is good for a whole year's worth of discounts to special events and concerts. It's a gift worth giving, and it helps OPB too. So please call.
We have a lot of phones open for you, so give us a call right now. We have some other gift ideas for you to consider as well. A $60 contribution brings you a superbly etched OPB coffee mug just waiting to be filled with something like hot mulled cider for the holidays. Or at the same level, choose the 1993 Oregon Field Guide calendar, my favorite, full of glorious photographs taken by some of you, our OPB members. We also have VCR Plus for those of you who want to make programming your VCR a very simple matter. The VCR Plus is yours for a contribution pledge of $150. All you have to do is call now.
The numbers are simple. Remember, if you're calling from Portland, the number is 245-2345. From anywhere else in our viewing area, wherever you're viewing us, call toll-free 1-800-245-2346. When it comes to watching news, you can feel that you're barely keeping up or that you're really informed. McNeil-Lehrer is a thought-provoking, in-depth analysis of national and international events. You already know what the NewsHour is worth to you. It's time for you to let us know. Just pick up the phone. In Portland, 245-2345, or toll-free anywhere in our viewing area. From anywhere else in Oregon, 1-800-245-2346.
Now, we're just about to rejoin the NewsHour, but we have time for just a few more phone calls from you. Keep television worth watching on the air with your support. Call now. If you're calling from Portland, the number is 245-2345. 2345. Or for your convenience, we have a toll-free number for pledges coming from anywhere in our viewing area, 1-800-245-2346. Make that call right now.
If you'd prefer to mail us your contribution, here's the address. Oregon Public Broadcasting Foundation, Post Office Box 4373, Portland 97208. However, if you'd like to call in your contribution, our phone volunteers will be glad to take your pledge. In Portland, 245-2345. Elsewhere in our viewing area, 1-800-245-2346.
The so-called Iraq-gate story is next tonight. Yesterday, Attorney General William Barr rejected congressional demands for a special prosecutor. At issue is whether the Bush administration acted illegally in a bank fraud case involving loans to Iraq before the Gulf War. Barr acted after former federal judge Frederick Lacy found no evidence of wrongdoing. But Democrats in Congress denounced that decision and plan to continue their investigations. And President-elect Clinton said today he wanted more information. We begin with a backgrounder by congressional correspondent Kwame Holman.
For more than 2 years, House Banking Committee Chairman Henry Gonzalez has led a virtual one-man crusade, often speaking to an empty House chamber, about his suspicions that Iraq was abusing U.S. agricultural aid in the late 1980s. Gonzalez focused on a federal export loan program under the Commodity Credit Corporation, which promotes foreign sales of American farm products.
This program, known as the Commodity Credit Corporation program, was the cornerstone of the U.S.-Iraq relations, and the food, supposedly food, financed by the program was used as a political tool to improve relations with Iraq.
The CCC allows credit-strapped nations to borrow money to purchase U.S. goods. If the countries don't repay the loans, the U.S. government must. Iraq obtained nearly $5 billion from U.S. banks and has since defaulted on almost $2 billion of those loans. According to Gonzalez, other congressional Democrats, and news accounts, Iraq had a cozy relationship with one bank in particular, the Atlanta branch of Banco Nacional del Lavoro, known as BNL, a bank owned by the Italian government. Reportedly, the bank allowed Iraq to borrow more than it needed for farm purchases, and Iraq in turn used the surplus to buy weapons. They also allege Iraq traded farm goods for military equipment, including material to build nuclear arms, and that Iraq got billions in illegal loans from BNL.
What is the administration trying to hide in the record of its assistance to Saddam Hussein?
The Democrats have charged the Bush administration tried to cover up its knowledge of BNL's activities after one official of the bank was charged by the FBI with facilitating illegal loans to Iraq.
Mr. DeGroote, did you have any knowledge of any money going to arms purchases or any military uses?
Last summer, a majority of the House Judiciary Committee asked the Justice Department to appoint an independent counsel to investigate all the Iraq policy allegations. Attorney General William Barr declined, saying the issue was being investigated adequately by the Justice Department and other federal agencies. Barr then appointed former federal judge Frederick Lacy to conduct a special investigation of the actions of the Justice Department and the CIA in the BNL affair. Yesterday, Judge Lacy reported his findings and dismissed charges of a cover-up as nonsense. He said there was no reasonable cause for further investigation. But at a news conference today, President-elect Clinton said he'd ask his own Attorney General to look into the Bush administration's pre-war policies toward Iraq.
And we're joined now by former Judge Frederick Lacy. Thank you for being here this evening. You concluded no one in the Bush administration did anything illegal in this matter, and charges of a cover-up are nonsense. A month ago, you said you had information sufficiently specific and credible to justify your investigation, What happened to that information in a month?
First, you misspoke. I did not. Let me tell you what my mission was. My mission was to investigate whether the Justice Department was acting properly. There were charges. I later concluded they were reckless and irresponsible, that there was corruption in the Justice Department, that the political pressure had been imposed on the Justice Department and its personnel. I approached it in order to determine whether that was so. I found out that those charges were false. They were wrong. And in the meantime, many innocent people had been defamed by words protected by the privilege from the legislative halls, and I find that irresponsible. I did not go beyond that except to the extent that in order to determine what had happened in certain places within the investigation, I did have to go to other people. For example, I took the sworn testimony of Secretary Baker, the sworn testimony of Secretary Eagleberger, the sworn testimony of Mr. Rostow, counsel to the President. But we tried to focus on what was going on in the Justice Department because that was the charge, that somehow the Justice Department had been brought into the situation in order to create a cover-up. And I still don't know what the cover-up was because I found no corruption, no improper conduct. When I was done, based on my experience in law enforcement, this prosecution preceded by the investigation was done properly.
Well, are you saying then that the evidence that justified your investigation turned out to be flimsy and insubstantial when you finally looked into it?
No, under the statute, Senator Boren had written a letter which required attention.
He's the chairman of the Senate Intelligence
Senate Select Committee on Intelligence, and incidentally, he was the first person I went to after I was appointed. He was most cooperative. He gave me access to his information on a commitment of confidentiality, which I kept. I might add that I went to the committee chaired by Congressman Gonzalez. They would not give me access to the confidential materials they had compiled. In any event, the statute says that in 15 days after a letter like that from Senator Boren, a decision must be made whether you then go to the next stage that's called the preliminary investigation stage.
So his letter constituted the evidence that forced you to go to the next stage?
It wasn't a question of being forced. I decided that in order to do the job that I was supposed to do, I would then have to lift this to the preliminary investigation level. But in the letter I wrote, tracking what Senator Boren had written, I said I was not making any charge of criminal conduct. That's what led us then to the preliminary investigation stage, and that's what I reported on yesterday.
So you're not saying then that you're not, by your report yesterday, clearing every administration official of any wrongdoing in this matter?
I was asked that question yesterday at a press conference, and I said, I can't say that no crime was committed in the last 4 years or 8 years. I just don't know. But I do know what my investigation revealed about the Justice Department's handling of the BNL matter. That I know more about than anybody else in the United States today.
So did you also investigate or not allegations that some officials in the administration withheld from Congress information about what's called the coddling of Saddam Hussein?
I did have to get into that aspect of foreign policy. I am convinced that beginning in the early years of the Reagan administration, the decision was made that we should build up Iraq and make sure that Iran did not win the war. We wanted to avoid the spread of Islamic fundamentalism. That was the policy that led to our supporting Iraq. When the war ended, there was a I shouldn't put it that way, there was a ceasefire in 1988. The Bush administration, I'm satisfied, made a reasoned decision that this policy should be continued, that they recognized there might be a downside because of Hussein being what he was, but nonetheless that there was an adoption of that foreign policy. I'm also satisfied that a part of that was, in fact, extending CCC credits to Iraq. I'm not satisfied that the product or the talk about bartering and diversion, that resulted in the acquisition of military equipment. On the other hand, I am satisfied that when they got into unsecured loans totaling over $2 billion, there were 3 of these in 1988 and one in April of 1989 for $1.155 billion, unsecured, being loaned by BNL Atlanta to Iraq, that some of that money was diverted to the acquisition of military equipment.
Well, just so I understand, when you say charges of cover-up are nonsense, arrant nonsense, are you referring only to allegations of improper interference in the BNL prosecution or to alleged allegations of cover-up to hide aid to Saddam Hussein? Are you referring to both of those?
No, sir, I'll put it again. What my mission was under the letter of appointment. As the Attorney General put it to me, I want to find out whether there is any truth to the charges that the matter has not been handled properly in the Justice Department. That was a mission I dedicated myself and my staff to, and we concluded that there was absolutely no basis for that charge.
Does that also mean, if you said the prosecution of the bank case was nearly perfect, or pretty near perfect, do you mean you've accepted the prosecutor's original case, that that bank manager in Atlanta acted alone in masterminding the illegal part of this, and without the knowledge of his superiors in Rome, and without U.S. officials knowing that the people in Rome knew?
Well, there are several questions that take me into about 200 pages of response, and I'll try to do that in a minute. I am satisfied that, first of all, there was no cover-up. Secondly, what's interesting here is that what was charged by the legislators, that Washington was trying to protect BNL and persuade the Atlanta prosecutors not to indict BNL, that was 180 degrees wrong, and I suggest that the people in Congress knew that. The files reveal quite plainly, starkly, that it was the Atlanta prosecutor early on that saw BNL as a victim of DeGaule's frauds.
DeGaulle is the manager I mentioned.
Yes, sir, that's correct. And it was Washington that didn't see it that way for almost, well, indeed 13 months. And it was not until February of 1991, after parading witnesses before the grand jury in Atlanta, battalion principals of BNL who denied complicity, that the Justice Department in Washington finally agreed with the Atlanta theory. And that's what is so wondrous about this, that in an effort to try to create a bridge on a theory that there was a flawed foreign policy, and therefore there was a cover-up of the prosecution, reputations of dedicated men and women, career prosecutors, had been defamed, and the people in the legislature just don't care. That's what has offended me about this.
What do you say to the charge that your report amounts to a whitewash?
Well, that was interesting. I read that last night. I happen to know what time my report went up on the Hill. I indicated my report was in two parts at that time. The first part is about 200 pages, backed by something like 2,000 pages of exhibits. Knowing what time it went up on the Hill and knowing who received it, the people who were talking whitewash hadn't read the report. This refers to the chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Mr. Brooks, who appeared on your screen a few minutes ago. He didn't have time to read the report. And that's why I was at first amused, but secondly offended once again by the lack of responsibility that I see in one branch of our government when they step into a prosecution like this and claim that there's corruption, when I found it didn't exist.
Well, we're going to hear from that branch of government now, because we're also joined by Democratic Congressman Charles Schumer of New York, who serves on the Banking and Judiciary Committees. Congressman, do you think this is a whitewash?
Well, I'd say there are a good number of unanswered questions in this report, and there ought to be an independent counsel or further investigation of it, and if I might go through them quickly. First, the question of, did the CIA know that Rome was involved in what Mr. DeGaulle did in Atlanta? Did they tell the Justice Department? And did the Justice Department in Washington let Atlanta know or not? We don't know whether that's a fact or not, because Judge Lacey has not made that part of the report available to anybody, certainly not to us, and therefore it's basically saying, trust me. Second, there was a White House call to Atlanta. This is very unusual for someone in the White House to call the Atlanta assistant U.S. attorney, someone just diligently doing the case, and saying that it would be embarrassing if something happened. Now, Judge Lacey says in his report that it didn't influence the Atlanta prosecutor. But the issue of law here is whether that call was made with the intent to do that, to influence the prosecutor, and that is a question of judgment. We need an independent person to evaluate that, not somebody appointed by the Attorney General who oversees the Justice Department. Third, in terms of the allegations made before Congressman Barnard's committee, it is admitted that documents were falsified. Judge Lacey's report says they interviewed some people but didn't have enough time because Judge Lacey was working under a very limited time frame to determine one way or the other what happened there. That's a very serious issue, sending altered documents to Congress. I could go on with the other two as well, but I think you get the gist that there are many unanswered questions here that Judge Lacey's report do not answer, that cry out for an independent counsel.
So you will continue to press for, you and your Democratic colleagues will continue to press for an independent prosecutor to be appointed in this case.
We will certainly press for some non-conflicted source to investigate here. Judge Lacey was appointed by the Attorney General, who oversaw the Justice Department wishes at issue here. This is just the kind of case where an independent counsel is called for. We will either ask we will either renew the independent counsel statute or simply ask the new Attorney General in the new administration, who will not be conflicted because he or she was not head of the Justice Department when all this happened, to investigate on their own.
What crime do you believe was committed and by whom in this case?
Robin, I can't say for sure that a crime was committed. I can tell you that a series of different types of crimes may well have been committed. That the standard for an independent counsel is that reasonable grounds exist to warrant further investigation. I think if you took 100 independent, impartial people and asked them to look at all the facts, the vast majority would say that those reasonable grounds exist.
The criticism is made of you Democrats. You heard of the judge's supposition of what you were charging with because you didn't like the foreign policy, a kind of charge of cover-up was spun around that. But the criticism is made of you by independent people that you never put together a coherent hypothesis on what you actually think happened, who did what wrong, and who is guilty of it.
Well, I would say that's not the case. There are a number of possible hypotheses, all of which are logical. There is a hypothesis, for instance, that after this all happened and the arms were sold using credit, that our government may have been involved and someone in that government didn't want that to be found out. It may be that no one in the government was involved, but still higher-ups didn't want to be involved, didn't want that information to come out. It may well be that because of foreign policy considerations, legitimate foreign policy considerations, criminal wrongdoing was swept under the rug. Those are three different hypotheses, each of which makes sense, none of which can be proven yet, but which should be gotten to the bottom.
Judge Lacey, what is your comment to sum up? Give you a minute to sum up.
In the first place, the call to the White House we investigated. I indicated in my report that I am convinced that there was nothing that took place in that conversation that persuaded the Atlanta prosecutor to the wrong view. And the reason the call was made was tied into these CCC loans.
You didn't think such a call was improper?
But this is why I didn't. Because at the time, the Agriculture Department was under great pressure. Representative Schumer's colleagues had besieged the department with letters that they wanted these loans extended. This is the hypocrisy in all of this. Congress itself...
Wait a second, Judge. That's not fair. I didn't. I fought those loans. So did Gonzalez.
Okay.
Your colleagues... That's not fair. Some other colleagues have nothing to do with this.
Excuse me, Congressman. We just have a few seconds to give
that's just uncalled for.
Judge Lacey a comment.
I had the letters, Representative Schumer. I have the letters. Let me put it this way. I recognized that we would be having a new Attorney General. I'm going to tell Congressman Schumer this, or Representative Schumer this, that I do hope he will continue to urge, to exhort further investigation, so that when this new Attorney General comes in, this investigation will be continued or redone, and I'm going to buy him a very fine dinner in Washington if this new Attorney General says that I am wrong.
Judge, it'll
I
have
have
to
no-
be less than $25, but that's fine.
I have no axe to grind here. I was independent. I go back
Does
to
he
my
have to
law.
buy you one if you're right?
No, I won't do that.
Okay, we have to leave it there, gentlemen. Judge
Fine.
Lacey, Congressman Schumer, thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
The major stories of this Thursday: President-elect Clinton named Texas Senator Lloyd Bentsen as his Treasury Secretary and California Congressman Leon Panetta Budget Director. French troops shot and killed 2 Somalis after their truck sped through a roadblock. It was the first bloodshed of Operation Restore Hope. Good night, Robin.
Good night, Jim. That's the NewsHour tonight. We'll see you tomorrow night. I'm Robert McNeil. Good night.
Funding for the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour has been provided by PepsiCo. PepsiCo. Part of helping the world live and communicate better is keeping it well informed. That's why funding for the NewsHour is also provided by AT&T and by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and viewers like you.
This is PBS.
Funding for local broadcast of the McNeil-Lehrer NewsHour has been provided by Davis Wright Tremaine, a law firm serving businesses and individuals from offices in Oregon, Washington, California, Idaho, Alaska, and Washington, D.C.
Hi, I'm Jim Leinfelder. Well, it's decision time. It's time to make up your mind whether to support OPB or sit on the sidelines and just hope the good programs keep on coming. While you're thinking it over, let me remind you of something the philosopher Edmund Burke said. The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing. I bet that got your attention. The same thing applies to the triumph of not-so-good television. Get involved. Don't wait until it's too late. Viewer-supported television is only as good as the viewers who support it. Bolster OPB with a call and pledge of support right now. The numbers are simple. Remember, if you're calling for Portland, the number is 245-2345. From anywhere else in our viewing area, all of Oregon and southern Washington, call toll-free 1-800-245-2346.
Profound wisdom, Jim. Hi, I'm Tess Vigland of OPB Radio. I'd like to encourage you to give a little extra when you call with your pledge tonight. We'll send you the etched OPB coffee mug with a contribution at the $60 level. A contribution of $60 will also get you my favorite, the 19...